Dear student, today we are going to discuss about some misguided students, how they lose their path and go into the wrong destination and don't really know how to choose the right path of education in terms of IELTS training. And afterwards, we'll be discussing about understanding maps in the listening module. I know for some people it's a very hard job and they can't find their way while listening to the maps. And afterwards, at the very end, I'll discuss with you about 5 topics that comes in task 2. I know for you it's very hard to explain the task 2 topics and write it and give your logics. So I'll not exactly teach you how to write it, but I will give the logics that you need before you write it. Without brainstorming, you'll not be able to write that. So I'll give you the materials or food for thought that you need to write something. So let's begin with the misguided students. I notice all the time whenever I open my Facebook account that most students or many students, they are looking for speaking partners. And I wonder why. Do you really mean that you want to find someone who will talk with you and then you're going to improve your speaking ability? I mean, since when IELTS is a test of conversation? IELTS doesn't really ask you to make conversation about something. This is not about talking with another person. This is about answering the questions and knowing the right answers. That is, politically right answers, and describing about some incidents in your life. I don't really see it as a matter of conversation. I see it as a matter of explaining things in the right manner. So even if it really helps you, but do you think a speaking partner can teach you the correct sentences and they can find your mistakes and they can correct you and give the better answers? No, they can't. How can a blind man can show path to another blind man? The students who are not really so much qualified cannot teach another students who are ignorant about those things. My suggestion is, without an expert, nobody can really teach you how to say things properly. You need a trainer who are knowledgeable, who has experience in Western countries, who has experience with talking with the British or native speakers. These are the people who can really teach you. Your partners or your friends or someone who is at your level cannot really teach you in the proper way. So I want you to stop these things and get yourself educated from the proper trainers, something that will really help. Second thing I notice that most students, they are seriously go to the British Council, register themselves and go for the test. And afterwards, they get very disappointing scores, like 5.5 or 6. That's very disappointing. I mean, why did you go for the test even before taking some mock test just to realize or understand what's your current level? What's the point of wasting your money by paying for the IELTS test and then you get the lowest score possible? I know most students are desperate, and most people, they're desperate to go abroad and they are in a hurry, very much in a hurry to take the test and go abroad. My suggestion is that before you sit for the test, at least take 5 mock tests. After that, you'll get an average and you'll understand what's your current level. The average of 5 mock test results is your real score. It's hard to predict that what you're gonna score exactly on the real IELTS test because things happens in the real test. You may get sick, you may suddenly make mistakes, suddenly you may get nervous, and many things could happen. So it's hard to predict what your test score is going to be. But at least whenever you take some mock test, then you get some ability to judge yourself. And after you sit in front of an expert, then he can comment on you. He can find your mistakes and tell you when you are really ready for the real test. So my suggestion is don't rush. Don't be in a hurry to go for the test place, to go to the British Council and register yourself, and without preparation, sitting for the test. I think that's a very poor decision to make. And many students are very overconfident. Some students or some test takers, they have a background in English. I understand that. Many students have finished their honors in English language and they guess that as they already have a degree in English language, probably they will get a very good score. But things happen in a different way in the real world. After sitting for the test, they find that their score is not that good or as much as good as they were expecting. So don't be overconfident. Know your level. Judge yourself correctly by sitting for the mock test or and facing an expert who can make comment about you. Are you ready for it or not? So before you sit for the test, you get yourself properly educated, take some mock test, and after you go for the test. So don't be overconfident. Now, another type of overconfident students are those who think they can train themselves. Yes, you can really train yourself. You can do the reading passages by yourself. You can listen to the audios from internet. Nowadays, internet is full of information that you might need. You can write essays and you can read the passages and find the answers. Do your studies by yourself. But it doesn't really improve your score. Even if it does, it takes a very long time. If you know that Jalaluddin Rumi once said, 2 days journey takes 200 days without a guide. Meaning that if you don't have a guide and if you have to find a destination, you will need 200 days, which could be solved or which could be achieved in just 2 days. If there is a guide, he can shorten your path. He can show the path to achieve that quickly. Without a guide, you'll be finding the right path and you will be wasting your time. So my suggestion is you can train yourself. Theoretically, it's possible, but without a trainer, you will not achieve it very quickly or as quickly as you need. So get yourself under the umbrella of an expert who can guide you properly to get a score as quickly as you desire. Another mistakes that the test takers take is that they focus mostly on reading. They spend a lot of time for the reading passages, ignoring other modules. As reading passages are interesting to read and they are easily available and you have things handy, you can easily find a book with reading passages and you can do the answering by yourselves and correct yourselves. And while uh, it's very unlikely, or it's kind of difficult to find somebody who can ask you questions for the speaking module and you can answer, and you cannot really practice the speaking session with somebody. So there is a tendency that most students, they do the reading passages more than any other modules. Now, if you don't give the same amount of time for different modules, you will score more in one module and you will score less in another module. And it will create an imbalance of different scores in different modules, which will not be sufficient to get admission or to get immigration in other countries like Canada. So instead of focusing on one module, try to give same amount of time in different modules. Make a routine that each day for each module you're going to spend 1 hour at least. So 1 hour for listening, 1 hour for reading, 1 hour for writing, 1 hour for speaking. In that way, you'll be giving enough time or proper time or same amount of time for each module, which will create a balance in your scores in future. Don't ignore one subject and don't over focus on another module. Now, it's possible that you might be good in one module and you might be weak in another module. In that case, you can work more on that module in which you are weak. So you can create exceptions, but make sure that you create a balance between all the modules. So don't make mistakes. By making mistakes or by making wrong decision, you're gonna get low score. I all the time suggest my students focus on vocabulary, but I'm not sure why. Maybe it's because of laziness or some other kind of reasons. Most test takers, they're very unwilling to study vocabularies. Now, vocabulary is something like a asset in terms of IELTS tests. Without studying or without knowing lots of words, you will never do good in the reading session. Trust me, in IELTS test, if you study 10 IELTS passages or 100 IELTS passages, there are no difference unless you improve your vocabulary every day. If you have the same amount of vocabulary stock and you keep on doing the IELTS reading passages, you'll be scoring the same amount or the same score, and which will not be a good thing for you. So my honest suggestion is each and every day, memorize or study at least 30 to 50 words per day, depending on your available time or depending on your situation. You do the best to learn more vocabulary. Now, let's go to the session of understanding maps. Today, I'm going to talk about the maps that comes in the IELTS test. Give me a moment. Most students, they get misguided while listening to the audio of maps in the listening module. And maybe it doesn't come all the time in all tests, but sometimes maps or plans are given in the listening module. And as the test takers, they don't properly train themselves about the maps or plans, they get confused to understand what the speaker is telling where to go, and how to find the correct location. So today I'm going to discuss about those things. Now, what are the common problems regarding understanding the maps? First of all, weakness of vocabulary. If you don't know the words related to the location or places, or understanding the location, geographical location of one place, you will not understand the maps or plans properly. Vocabulary is essential. The words related to describe the location of a certain place, how to go from left to the right, to the upward direction, to the backward direction, to the adjoining room, adjacent places. If you don't know these words, you will have difficulty to understand the maps. So make sure you have the knowledge of certain kind of vocabularies related to understanding the location of a place. So vocabulary is essential. Now, to understand the maps, the speaker in the listening module, willingly or intentionally, they give a lot of information. They give you so much information that you get confused and you kind of lost your way. So choosing the right information to find your location is a little bit of a challenge. So have patience, listen very carefully, don't get overwhelmed by so many informations. If you listen carefully with calm and peace, you will be able to understand the location or the direction. Another mistakes the students make regarding the IELTS listening module is the spelling. Whenever you spell a word, make sure that it's correct. Even if you give the right answer, but if the spelling is wrong, you will get low marks. Another thing is the visualization of the map or plan. You get a map in front of you to understand it, and the speaker will tell you you have to go from this place to that place. But in your mind, you have to have the ability to have the imagination to be like in that location, to be like on that street, and going from left to the right and upward to the leftward. You will have to have the visualization in your brain that you are in that location and you are walking on that street, and you have to look like on the left side and on the right side. So visualization is very important to understand the maps. Make sure you practice a lot of maps so that you build your ability to visualize what's in the map. Another thing is not knowing your position. If you don't know your position in the map, then you'll be lost. Some people, they don't look at the map where the east, west, north, south, these directions are given. Whenever you find a map that's where the north and south, east, west directions are given, you'll have to look at it carefully and you'll have to know your position. And there are some maps where these directions are not given. Maybe it's not necessary in that case, but whenever you see a map, imagine yourself in the place where the audio speaker tells you to look at. So from that location, visualize that you are there and follow their direction, and know that the left or right side of your body is not, or sometimes it's not, the same thing in the map. Imagine yourself that you are on the street, and whenever it will say that it's on the left side of yourself, you will have to imagine that you are on that street looking forward, and the left side is actually the left hand side of your body. Some people, they get confused about these things and they lose the momentum of left and right location. Apart from not understanding the difficult words regarding the location or directions, they really get confused about their body position in that certain map. So to improve your vocabulary, today uh, I will explain to you some words that are related with the maps. For example, at the top or at the bottom. At the top means in the map, whatever is on top, that's your top, or in the map, the bottom is your bottom. On the left, right, on the left side, and on the right is like on your right hand side. And the far side is from the location, from your location in the map to something that's not near, that's very far. That's the far side. So I think you understand the north, south, east, west. That's easy. So slightly west of means that you'll have to go to the west a little bit, slightly, a little bit, not too much, and then you'll find the location. That is slightly west of. In the southwest, how will you know what is the southwest? If this is the south and this is the west, southwest is between south and west. Southwest is somewhere in the between. Northwest, in the same way, if north is up downward direction and west is in this direction, so northeast will be like in this direction. In the middle or in the center. Sometimes in the map there are some fountains in the middle of the map, so that's the center, in other words. Above or below. Above is, let's say you have a house in the map. What is above means on top of that house or on top of that location, and below is under that location. I think you will understand inside or outside. That's easy. Opposite. What is the meaning of opposite? I think you know for sure, but in the map, opposite means if there is a house on the left side of the road, opposite means on the other side of the road. That's the opposite. But in front of the house is not really the opposite. In front of the house means the, let's say, the road just in front of the house. That's in front. The gate of the house shows where the front of the house is. All right. So I think you'll understand left hand side and right hand side. If you imagine yourself in the map, and if you think that you are going upward directions, so on your left hand, that's the left hand side, and the right hand shows your right hand side. Another word is clockwise and anti-clockwise. I think you know that clock turns from this direction to the rightward direction. That is clockwise. The way the stick in the clock moves, that's the clockwise. And anti-clockwise is the opposite direction of the clock. So it's not difficult to understand, but I'm just explaining to you just to make yourself used to these words, clockwise and anti-clockwise. These words sometimes may sound easy, but on the listening module, if you don't know how the native speakers pronounce it in their own way, then you will find it confusing and you will not understand what is anti-clockwise. You will find it very difficult to understand it. And the next word will be a little beyond. It means a little bit farther, a little bit next to it. That's a little beyond. Another word is just past. Just past. Let's say there is a house, and if you keep on walking along the street, if you just go a little bit farther than the house, that is the word to explain just past. before you get to. It means that before you reach a certain house, just before that, maybe not just before that, maybe a little bit before that, that's the word to explain before you get to. Adjoining. Adjoining means, let's say there are two houses next to each other, or there are two rooms next to each other. That's adjoining room or adjoining house, which is like very much attached with each other. You can use another word like adjacent. It gives the same meaning. Another word is run alongside. Something, let's say there are two railway paths, which is just next to each other going in the forward directions. That is the situation where we can use the word run alongside, meaning that the two rail paths, two railways are going in the same directions next to each other. So that's run alongside. So there are some other words describing directions and locations, but I just gave you some examples. So I hope this lecture will help you to understand the maps, and it would be better to explain to you with the pictures and the maps and with audios. Maybe sometime later we'll arrange it in another video. And now I want to go to the task 2 session with some topic sentences. Give me a moment. Now, the hard part in writing task 2 is not the grammar, is not the vocabulary. It's your brainstorming. If you don't know how to bring up the logic and put it into words, how to brainstorm and think about it, how to give or describe the pros and cons about that certain subject, you'll not be able to write. Even if I give you a whole set of grammar books, of a dictionary, you'll not be able to write and give logic about certain matters. So I don't really suggest that you study so much about the sociology, psychology, and other issues, but be conscious about your surroundings, be conscious about your environment, what's going on in your society, what are the social issues that are burning in our society. Be aware of those matters. That will give you the ability to write about something. So today, I'm going to give you some discussions about these topics. So here is the topic sentence. Compared to the past, children now spend more time for playing virtual simulation games. Virtual simulation games means like the video games or the games that they find online, or the games that are available in gadgets like iPads or phones or any mobile devices. That's virtual simulation games. And participating in online social networks than meeting people in person to socialize. How has this behavior affected society? Discuss the reasons and consequences of this behavior. Provide specific examples to support your answer. Now, let's talk about the situation here, that in the modern world, because of this technological revolution, in in terms of gaming industry or in children's video games, it's now almost not is avoidable. You can't really avoid it, but to face this situation where the children are very much keen on playing games, so they spend a lot of time for these games, and they become uh, an inward person. They become unwilling to socialize and to talk with other students or other friends or to meet other people. They make themselves uh, in a closed situation where they spend all their day playing games and not doing any social networking activities. So the question here is, how has this behavior affected society? Whenever the children, they are very unwilling to communicate with other people, they become friendless. They don't know, or they don't learn how to behave with other people, how to build friendship with other people, how to do the teamwork, and how to do a certain job by studying or by working with other people and finish the job. They lose this capacity. Instead of that, instead of learning, instead of communicating with other people, they simply focus or waste their time on video games. So this affects our society very badly, and it gives a very bad impression of that person. It makes that person lose his ability to improve or make the best of himself. So discuss the reasons. So what are the reasons behind it? One reason is that the parents actually provide them all these video gaming devices, and they simply don't spend a lot of time with them. It's the parents' responsibility to make sure that the children doesn't spend their whole day playing video games. So instead of uh, giving them enough time, the parents, they just leave them with a gaming device, and they do their own work. This is simply unacceptable. This is harmful for the children. Parents will have to understand that sooner or later this will harm the child. So make sure, the parents must make sure that their children are given extra care, and to make sure that they give enough time for them. Discuss the reasons and consequences of this behavior. What's the consequence? Consequence is that if everybody in the society doesn't communicate with each other, how they will know each other, how they will make friends, how they will make relationship with other people. And this will badly affect his ability to communicate with other society members. So if, let's say, if you don't know how to talk with another person, how to mingle with the society, then you will be left out of the society. You will be an outcast in that society, and nobody will accept you in their group. So it's very essential that you learn the manners in the society, the etiquettes of a certain society. So it's very important that you live in a society and you communicate and you learn to behave with other people properly. Instead of wasting your time on the video games, you should uh, focus on improving your ability and make your best effort to communicate with the society. Now, provide a specific examples to support your answer. Now, this is very essential part. First of all, whenever you are given a task, make sure you answer or write specifically the points that are given to do. If you're given a task in the topic, you will have to make sure that every point is touched by you. So if they ask you that to give a specific example, in real life example, you will have to give. For example, you can bring up uh, what's on the news, how the unsocial children are causing problem in the family, how they become criminal at the end by not relating themselves with the society, you have to give a certain example, real life example from the statistics, from your own personal knowledge, or from your from the news that you find in the media. You have to collect or remember those information, specific example, and add it in the writing session. Even in task 2, if they simply don't ask, even if they don't ask to give specific example, it is always better to add some real life example. If you can remember, if you can write it, it will add some extra marks in your writing. The examiner will find it attractive to read a piece of writing with lots of information, or with statistics, with certain real life example, or something that happened in your own life. If you give this kind of examples, it will seriously improve your score, the writing score. And I got 8.5 in the writing score. That's because I made sure that an example, a proper example, is given in my writing. I completed all my tasks, and I used the best vocabulary possible. And before I wrote it, my piece of writing, I did the brainstorming, and I wrote in a separate piece of paper that these are the things, these are the lines, these are the points I'm going to focus. And after finishing the piece of writing, I revised it. Many of my students, they write the task too, but they don't revise it, and they give it to me. And then afterwards, I find silly mistakes. If you revise your writing, you will easily get a good score, and you will make less mistakes. The less you make mistakes, the more you get your score. So I hope you understand, and you will be able to get good score after listening to my speech. So hopefully on another day, I'll come with another topic and discuss with you. So for today, that's the end of it. So goodbye. Thank you very much for your time.